In this video, we will see how we can delete a user record using your view controller and MVC architecture. So first what we'll do here, we'll create a front end, that is our view, in which we'll have a very simple form with only one ID. And that ID will be entered, and on clicking delete, so it will go to database, it will delete that record and come back and display the final records. So this is what we'll be doing in this video. So here you have to follow, you can follow the same logic as what we have done in update. So I'll create a JSP file, new JSP file, and I'll call this as delete user.jsp, and I'll press on finish. So here I have my JSP file ready. So here I'll call this title as delete, and here, as I said, I need a very simple form with only one input tag. So here I'll say in h1 delete user data, and then here I will have a form, a very simple form with action and method. So method, again we'll use post. Action we have not yet specified because we have not created the controller, and as I said, we simply need one input of type text. Then I'll say name as UID, that is user ID, and placeholder enter user ID, and I'll say this is required. That means the data is required. And I then need a submit button to submit the form to the controller. So I'll say input tag, I'll say type as submit, and I'll give the value as delete. So whatever ID I write, it should go to the database and delete it. So our view part is done. Very simple. So let us run this view and see if my HTML part is ready. Okay, sorry, I just forgot to press finish. Is it running? Yes, it says started. Yeah. So here we have the very simple page where we have delete user data, and here I have a simple ID which I have to enter to delete, and I'll have a delete button which will go to the controller and delete the data from database. So we will be trying that. Once this is done, then I'll have a new controller here. I'll say new servlet. Here I'll say it as delete user. Now, do we have to create three controllers for this? You can create one controller for all the operation, but the reason we are using multiple here, so that initially it is easier for you to understand what controller is view is. So that is why we are doing everything in separate. Later in the part you will see where all the operation, all these controllers can be done in one single controller. So we will see that also later. In this post, in this controller I have to get this data. So I'll copy this controller servlet and I will paste in my forms action. So in action I will paste it. So I have pasted this. So on submitting, it will go to delete user, and I have to get this UID. So I will say here int of ID is equals to, then I'll say request dot get parameter, and what is the parameter name? UID. Yes. So now this returns a string and this is an integer, so I have to typecast it. Integer dot parse int. So I have typecasted this. Now it becomes an integer. So this ID should be sent to my database in order to delete it. Then how do we do it? We have to write the DAO part. Yes. So in DAO part, we have to write the code to delete it, and the SQL syntax is very simple. That is delete from table, and where I have to give the condition. So going to my user DAO, I will write a new method to delete the data. So I'll say public, I'll say static, and I will return a boolean data type, or I will return an integer which says 0 means 0 row deleted, 1 means it is deleted. Okay. Then public static int delete user by ID. So I'll get the date int of id, okay, and then I will delete the user by id. So first I'll create a result variable, that is the return type what I'll give here, result. Now we have to write a try catch block. In this try catch block we will write the code to connect to database, and from database we have to delete that and send the response to our controller. So this is what we are trying to write in this method. Now again, as I said, the first two lines will be same for all the connections, so you can simply copy this and paste it below, so no need to type it over and over again. After this is done, I have to write the statement to delete it. Yes, so I'll create a prepared statement. So prepared statement pst is equals to con dot prepare a statement, and what is the SQL syntax? Delete. So you guys remember the syntax, right? So for delete it is delete, then I'll say from, and then I'll say crud dot user where my id is equal to question mark. So it has to go ahead and delete from the table user from the condition what is the primary key id. To complete this prepared statement, I'll write pst dot set int parameter index 1 as id. What is this id? From here I'm getting the id. Now why have I not created user model? Because here I'm just getting one data, so why should I create a user model for that, right? So I can simply pass that id. After doing this, I can say result is equals to pst dot execute update. So it will delete, and after deleting it will return to result. So if it is 1, if the return type is 1, if the return value is 1, that means one row deleted. If it is 0, that means there was some error and it did not delete. So this is the simple code to delete. So this is the simple JDBC code to delete the data from database. So now I can go to my controller and here I can write the program. So here int result is equals to, then I'll call here user DAO, that is data access object class, dot I'll call the method delete user by id, and I'll pass the id which should be deleted. Very simple. Then I'll say if return type result what I get is greater than 0, that means it has successfully deleted. So I'll say response dot send redirect. So simply I'll say send redirect, and what is the page it should redirect to? It should redirect and display the data. So to display data, I'll go to display user. I will copy this web notation and I will paste it here. So it will redirect to that simply page. If it is false, if the result is 0, that means that id was not available. So for that I will create a print writer called as out is equals to response dot get writer, and then I'll say out dot println, and here I'll say id user id not present or available, or whatever is the message you want you can write. So this is the simple logic for deleting, where you're getting the data from your front end, your view in your controller, sending it to a DAO. No need to model because here we are getting only one data and we can return it. So that this is done, I can go ahead and run this program. So we will test both the cases where I'll give a valid UID, and in other case I'll give invalid UID, so that we get this error user ID not present. So first I'll give 3, the user ID which is not present, and if I press on delete, so it will give me a message user ID not present. Now again I'll rerun this, and this time I'll try to give a valid UID which will be deleted. So what is a valid UID here? I'll specify 1 or 2. Yes, so here I'll say 2 and I'll press say delete. So after deleting, see, it is coming back and retrieving, and see that my second data is gone. So here I have to go and have to press on refresh to see the live changes in data. You see this, the second feed that was RAM, it is being deleted, and same is being displayed in your front end. I have only one data. See here, both the cases. So this is how you perform your CRUD operation in JSP servlet using the MVC architecture.